Judy, you're muted. Judy, you're muted.
I think maybe you need to hold up the side. There you go.
Sorry about that. Okay, let's let the one person in and I will call the phone number and you guys can get started when you're ready.
Are you, Karen, have you contacted Nancy or not?
Yes, I did send the link to Nancy a few minutes ago. And I'm
Okay,
on the line with Corbin trying to help him get in. And then I'm gonna call the phone number. There's somebody trying to get in just with a phone number, so I have to
I
find
don't know
out.
who this person is.
I'll call them
either.
and see who they are.
all right,
Anyone-
well,
That's Paul Brennan. He's
we
familiar.
should start the meeting and then Corbin can catch up.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
Don't worry about that. Are you good to go?
so let us know, Judy, when we're live.
We're live.
Okay.
Yeah. We're ready.
Good evening, everyone. City of Cape May Historic Preservation Commission meeting, March 21st, 2022. In compliance with the Open Public Meeting Act of 1975, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided. If any member has reason to believe that this meeting is being held in violation of this act, they should state so at this time. Pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the States of America,
States of America,
to the
to
republic
the republic
for which it
for which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Ms. Campbell?
She's also muted.
I unmuted myself, Jim. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Bisagno?
Here.
Mr. Testa?
Here,
Ms. Wilson Stridick? Absent. Mr. Stevenson? Absent. Mr. Becker?
Here.
Mr. Carroll?
Here.
Mr. Copeland?
Here.
Okay, and
And,
we're waiting on Corbin.
And Corbin is having some administrative problems there. You've all had a chance to look at the minutes from February 14th. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
I will second, Tom.
Motion by Ms. Bisagno, seconded by Mr. Carroll. Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Ms. Bisagno?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
yes,
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. Resolutions. Elaine Property Management LLC, 513 Lafayette Street, 1053-13 and 15, Resolution 2022-05. Leska, 227 Windsor Street, 1027-6/16, Resolution 2022-06. Capoletti, 458 West Perry Street, 1031/1, Resolution 2022-07. And finally, Schultz, 215 Jefferson Street, 1083/1, Resolution 2022-8. Do I have a motion to accept those resolutions?
so I'll jump on it. So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Testa, seconded by Ms. Bisagno. Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Ms. Bisagno?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes,
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. Applications approved in review. You've had an opportunity to look at those. Do I have a motion to accept those applications?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to accept all the applications, but I would like to call the attention of the board to the application for the Church of the Advent Parish Hall, which is a contributing structure and on which the application was for roofing. That was listed as an asphalt to asphalt change. And the application unfortunately had language in it that said that there may be cedar shakes under the asphalt roof. So I would move acceptance of that conditioned on our usual condition that we put for full hearing, which is that there have to be a return to the board in the event that cedar shakes or original roofing material were discovered. So that would be the motion. Sorry it's so long.
I would second that.
Motion by Mr. Testa, seconded by Mr. Copeland. Ms. Campbell,
Yes.
Ms. Bisagno,
yes,
Mr. Testa,
Yes.
Mr. Becker,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes. First order of business this evening is Drake, 325 Congress Street, Block 1031, Lot 60. This is a contributing property. It's a rear addition, some siding and windows and deck. Do I have someone here representing that application?
There's someone on my screen named Peter Materna, but I don't have, I sent an email out that people should contact me, and I don't know who he is. I can let him in
Oh.
and see if he's
The
represented.
Drakes are on
I
there.
think you were muted. I think the applicant was muted.
But it should be Paul Fulcrum.
Yes,
Oh, Paul, you're on. Okay.
yes, sorry, I was muted. Paul Farnan with Fulcrum Design Group.
Okay, take it away.
So we're returning after last month's meeting, during which we received conceptual approval for addition and alterations to the contributing structure. At the time, the condition, or at least what we were asked to bring back here, was a little bit more clarity on the plans specifically.
I don't
No,
get, all I have is a little bit on the,
Corbin, you're live and we started the meeting. Would you show that
It says
Corbin
live on
Coswell
YouTube.
is now on?
Well, easy come, easy go.
Click on the other thing you saw that said go to the meeting, launch the meeting.
Should I continue?
Yes, please.
Okay.
it
Um,
says sign in.
So the request
Use
was
the meeting
to,
ID.
Okay,
Provide-
let's give it a minute for
Sure.
Corbin to figure
Obviously,
this out.
folks, this is not the NBC network.
Yeah.
Is your computer new or your device new?
No, it's ancient. It's ancient in today's world.
Corbin, would you
It's a
call in,
laptop, but it's, let's see. Okay, let me see what here.
Karen or Judy, get Corbin to call in by phone.
Carving, can you use?
Sorry for this. Once in a while, the system doesn't work exactly as we planned. So please be patient.
Just for control.
You want to start again? Sorry.
sure. So as I had mentioned, we were here last month. The project was conceptually approved, and we were asked to return to provide more clarity on how the addition was marrying with the existing structure, specifically in the way of a more refined site plan, as well as the building plans themselves. So that was provided with the submission that I believe each of you has in front of you now. I am able to screen share if you would like that. At least I believe so. If you would like, I can screen share and kind of walk through the same packet that you all have.
Mhm.
Yeah, if you would, please.
Certainly. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
You
Okay.
can, yes.
So the project is at 325 Congress Street, indicated here on the tax map, as well as this key map here.
I still don't have sound, but I'm getting all the pictures.
Excellent. So this is the subject property. All clad in cedar shake, which is the intent here. The proposed addition is to match the existing structure from a materiality standpoint, everything from the existing railing, the existing cedar shake, the existing asphalt shingle roofing, existing gelled wen double hung windows. So the intent is to match everything in kind with respect to the new addition. Here's some of the context photos of what we find on Congress Street. This, if you can see my cursor, this is the one immediately adjacent to the property.
I got everything now.
Excellent. So here, from the site plan perspective, this is showing the existing on the left and the proposed new work hatched in gray to the right. All of the work is to be done to the rear of the building, some of it being visible from Congress Street on what would be considered the east elevation. This is the existing first floor plan on the left and the existing second floor plan here on the right. Oops. The proposed alterations, addition, expanded living dining area here, and a reconfigured screened in porch, which previously was the whole rear, now is being shifted to this right corner. Upstairs, new master bedroom, bath, walk-in closet. Existing southwest elevation. This is street facing. This is the existing rear elevation. This is the existing southeast elevation, which is most visible from Congress Street. And the opposite, which is adjacent to that new or reconstructed cedar shake property that we saw in the context photos. So here, this is the proposed colored elevation. It's effectively identical. What would be seen as the rear volume to the left-hand side. This would be the rear elevation, the proposed rear elevation, totally reconfigured on the back with this new side rear screened in porch that I had mentioned looking at the plan. This is, again, the side of the house most visible from Congress, which is effectively just elongating this elevation. Again, all of the materiality would be consistent with what is there presently. The proposed side elevation, opposite side elevation. And these are the proposed materials. The cedar shake siding, a brick veneer is proposed to cover what is actually just a stuccoed block work. And then we would also be matching the railing, and as previously stated, match the 6/1 wooden gelled wen windows. And that's it in summary. More than happy to field any questions. I know we talked a lot about this last month, but we are here obviously seeking final approval at this point and open to engage the board with any kind of dialogue.
Terrific, thank you. Normally we go around the room, as you know, but since this was reviewed comprehensively last month and you've embraced the questions and comments that we had, so I thank you for that. I would just open it up to the commission. Does anyone have a question or concern on this presentation, this application?
I think it follows our request very, very accurately. And if others don't have comments, I would be the first to make a motion for its approval.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Carroll, second by Mr. Becker. Ms. Campbell,
Yes,
Mr. Cogswell,
yes,
Ms. Pisagno,
She's muted.
Yes.
Mr. Testa,
Yes.
Mr. Becker,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Take care.
Next order of business is Capoletti, 458 West Perry Street, Block 1031, Lot 1. This is a non-contributing property for a demolition. Wow, someone's having more fun than us, I suspect.
Not indicative of our meeting.
Is anyone here representing Capoletti?
Good evening, Scott Peter.
Hello, Scott.
Hello.
Current point of information. We approved the demolition last month. This is for a new construction. I think Judy.
Not true. We only approved the
No.
demolition for one building, and there's two buildings on the property. This
Yes,
is for
this
the
is for
second
the-
building on the property.
This is for the second building in the back that came up in discussion. And we asked the applicant to come forward with a presentation to support the demolition of that second building. Scott?
Yep. Good evening, Scott Peter, applicant here tonight for 458 Perry Street, Block 1031, Lot 1. This was a non-contributing structure. As we stated, I received preliminary approvals last month for demo of the existing building, conditional upon me supplying pictures and a survey. I have done that. I'm here tonight seeking approvals again for the existing building and the shed in the back. So demolition of everything that's on the property. Again, it's non-contributing. I did go through the 9 items to be considered for demolition at the last meeting. I'll be happy to go through that again if you wish. But
Yes.
I'm here tonight.
Yeah, Scott, we've got to go through the
Okay.
9
I'll make
items
it quickly.
for this
I
secondary
almost have
building.
memorized. Okay, so criterion items to be considered: application to demolish or remove a historic building, site, place, or structure. The following matters shall be considered. Item 1, the historic, architectural, cultural, or aesthetic significance. As I said, there is none because it's non-contributing. Its current and potential use for those purposes currently permitted by this chapter or for those use proposed. None. Its importance to the municipality and the extent to which it's historical or architectural value is such that its removal would be detrimental to the integrity of the historic property or district and the public interest. None, again, because it's non-contributing. Item 4, the extent to which it is of such old, unusual, uncommon design, craftsman, texture, or material that it could not be reproduced or could be reproduced only with great difficulty. Again, none. Item 5, the extent to which its retention would increase property values, provide business, create new positions, attract tourists, students, writers, historians, artists, and artisans, attract new residents, encourage study and interest in American history, stimulate interest and study in architectural and design, educate citizens in American culture and heritage, or make the municipality a more attractive and desirable place into which to live. None, again, as I said, it's non-contributing. What I'm proposing will be far more attractive. Item 6, the impact of its removal upon the historic district. None, because it's non-contributing. Item 7, the structural soundness and integrity of the building and the economic feasibility of restoring or rehabilitating the structure so as to comply with the requirements of the applicable building codes. None. Item 8, the compelling reason for not retaining the structure or improvement of its present site, the proximity to the proposed new location, and its accessibility to residents of the municipality, and probability of significant damage to the structure or improvement as a result of the relocation. Item number 9, the compatibility nature, and character of the current and the proposed surrounding areas as they relate to the intent and purposes of this article, and whether the proposed new location is visually compatible in accordance with the standards set forth herein. That completes the list.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Warren, could I make a comment before working with Judy and Karen? Scott, I just want you to realize that this is a separate application from the first demolition. You can't combine one that we've already done and done a resolution on, because this calls for a separate resolution. So actually, when it comes to fees, you actually have two fees due, or one paid for and one due for a second demolition permit. And demolitions are one side of the coin, and new construction is the other side, which calls for a new application and associated fees with that. You can't put all those things together under one fee.
I completely understand that, and I have no problem doing new fees or applications for such.
Okay. With that, I'll make a motion for approval.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Carroll, seconded by Mr. Cogswell. Ms. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell,
Yes,
Ms. Pisagno. Ms. Pisagno,
I'm sorry, it's the dogs. I keep muting.
that's okay.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Testa,
Yes.
Mr. Becker,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Next order of business, before we do that, I see that the Drakes are still online, and that was approved earlier. You're more than welcome to stay for the entire meeting. But did you have a question or something?
Oh, no, we were just interested in hearing about a couple of the other projects, if it's okay to stay on.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Thank you.
Next order of business, Cape Real Estate Developers LLC, 628 Broad Street, Block 1060, Lot 8. This is a non-contributing new construction, single-family home. Do I have someone representing this applicant?
Good evening, Scott Peter again.
Hello, Scott, again.
Good evening, everyone. This was a good evening, Scott Peter, applicant here tonight for 628 Broad Street, Block 1060, Lot 8. This was a prior application that received demo and also somewhat of conceptual with many recommendations on the house. But we've made all the recommendations on the property, as you can see on the plans. The first recommendation was to eliminate the first floor railings, which we've done so. The second recommendation was to take both floors and make them, instead of 9 foot and 8 foot, make them both 9 foot ceilings inside to elongate the building. I was able to do that. And then the last recommendation was to take the covered porch in the front and make it more of a heavier pitch. So we were able to take it from a 412 pitch to a 612 pitch. So I took all the recommendations from the last meeting and was able to incorporate them into this new plan that's in front of everyone tonight.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
We had recently given conceptual approval with those changes that Scott just outlined. And I think that, in fact, addresses all the issues that we had on this plan. Does anyone have any questions or concerns about this project?
Scott, you also added more windows and you increased the size of the dormers as we requested. So I would, if no one has any other comments, I would make a motion to approve this.
Yeah, I think this is a substantial improvement over what was there. I would second that motion.
And that's a motion for final approval, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Warren, under discussion, I would just like to say that, Scott, you are doing many, many houses in town. And they traditionally are following a very similar pattern of colonial revival, 3 stories, dormers at the top, attention to the front, not much to the sides of the rear of the building. I would urge you, and I know you're coming back for more buildings, to venture into some of the other periods of architecture that would add to the variety in town. The more you do everything the same, the more we start feeling like Levittown rather than beautiful Cape May with a wide variety of architectural styles. And if you would want to talk about some other different styles, I'd be more than happy to meet with you and discuss other styles that would be popular today and how they could fit in and keep that blend of architecture going.
I would absolutely love that. So thank you, and I'll absolutely reach out.
Okay, it was a motion by Mr. Becker, correct?
Yes.
Seconded by Mr. Copeland,
Yes,
correct? Okay.
yes,
Ms. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell,
yes,
Ms. Pisagno,
yes,
Mr. Testa,
Yes.
Mr. Becker,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll,
Yes.
and Mr. Copeland.
yes. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
you
Thank
too.
you.
Next order of business is McMahon, 20 Second Avenue, Block 1012, Lot 5. This is a contributing property. The plan is for a rear addition and a repair or replace foundation, refinish the porch, house, and the garage. Do I have someone here representing this applicant?
Yes, Christina Amy is here regarding this applicant.
Yes, Christina, take it away.
And I'm going to share my screen. I know we've been before the board. This will be the third for this project and hopefully final review. And a couple, we also had, in the interim, we had to get a zoning variance. So we have received our zoning variance. Since we last met, we had preliminary approval. And some of the comments that were made that we are accomplishing is this front entry was not originally centered, and we did center it and make it symmetrical within that front porch, as well as there was a shift in the structural columns at the rear porch, which we also coordinated. Those were the only comments from the preliminary approval that were made. I can go back through the material list if you'd like me to, or answer any additional questions. For the zoning board, actually, there was a change regarding them, and we actually made the addition slightly smaller, both the deck and the protrusion in the rear as well. Both got pulled in about a foot and a half. And I'm sorry, there's one other significant aspect. And originally, we got approval to demolish the portion of the garage on my client's property and retaining the existing half of the garage. We are now actually keeping the entire garage structure and refinishing that in place.
I don't know where I am.
Okay,
Christine Corbin Cogswell. I happen to be at the zoning board. I know you've got the parking right down the front, and there's that cedar tree. How are you going to align that parking? I know that the house next to you has parking right adjacent to the curb.
So, right, the properties share a common driveway that goes up the center of the property line. And then to accommodate parking, that cedar tree will need to be removed. And I'm going to go to the photograph really quick of that. So this tree, you can see part of it here and then part of it here. And as Mr. Galzunas mentioned at that zoning board hearing, is that we would have discussions with the Shade Tree Commission about this tree. It's not, the foundation of the house has significant structural issues. There's a lot of cracking in it. And part of it is this tree is very close to the foundation. It's actually on an angle, this tree. So I don't see a way to repair the foundation and maintain this tree. The root structure is completely under the house.
Okay, I was looking at it today and I was just wondering how you were going to save the tree and put the parking there. So I think that tree has to go. I mean, I agree with you. So, but that's up to the Shade Tree Commission. So
that tree is acting as a crowbar on the house. The more it leans, the more it's lifting up the foundation on that corner.
It very much is, yes.
Christina, did we discuss the new parking that's being added on the front? Was that in your former application?
It was in my former application. I'm gonna go back to the site plan here. It was in my former application. It was actually slightly closer to the common driveway. And the neighbor to the left here had concerns about the clearance of cars with the common driveway. And so it did move slightly closer to the house, about a foot, but it was there in the original plan. Given the undersized nature of this lot, there's no way to make compliant parking otherwise.
Okay.
It's both, narrow and short, and then that existing house, and with the common drive, there's no width here for parking between the common drive and the house itself to get parking in the back.
Well, my only question would be, we are approving parking in the front yard rather than a house that did not have parking other than a common driveway. And do we really want to approve that and open that door? There certainly is parking on the street and the ability, even with meters, to own a space in front of your house for a very fair fee for parking in the street. That definitely is a very dominating feature that takes away from all the nice things you're doing to the building.
Well, and that's why we were proposing drive strips as opposed to a fully paved driveway as well, to minimize that as much as possible. I would expect that we would have to go back to the zoning board for a parking variance if we were to remove it.
I don't think so, because you are, don't ask me for sure on that one, but you are adding parking to an existing building with a small addition that now is putting cars right in the front yard. And even though your parking surface looks not fine, if it's got 4 cars sitting out there in the front yard, that's exactly what we are trying to get away from.
Well, it would only be 1. It wouldn't certainly be 4 because there's only 1 parking space there. They can't park in the driveway as it's an easement for the neighbor's garage as well at the rear. And the addition is not the reason for the parking. The parking was non-conforming initially. As is. Actually, it's severely non-conforming as is, and we're changing it from a duplex use to a single family, which actually reduces the required parking on the lot. However, it doesn't meet that still.
Christina, it's Warren. I would agree with Tom. We have not approved front parking on applications in Cape May for obvious reasons, because people during our period of significance didn't have cars. And our effort is to preserve the streetscape as much as possible going into the future. So I believe that parking is problematic and would significantly subtract from the attractiveness of this home.
Okay.
Other comments from the commission? Anyone?
I would make a motion of approval with the elimination of the additional parking in the front yard of the property.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Carroll, seconded by Mr. Becker. Ms. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell,
Yes.
Ms. Pisagno,
Yes.
Mr. Testa,
Yes.
Mr. Becker, Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next order of business is Jones, 20 Patterson Avenue, block 1018, lot 1 and 2. This is non-contributing, new construction, single-family home.
And
Do I
you
have
have-
someone representing this applicant?
You have me again.
Lucky us.
Here's where she's going to put in the other parking space.
You know what? They're only a block and a half away. Maybe I could arrange something.
You could rent it.
I'm going to share my screen again, if I could get the right screen up. So when we were last here, so we're going for final again. We had conceptual approval. Again, this project also was a undersized lot and a corner lot. So we had to go for a zoning variance, which we have received as well. There are from our conceptual approval through the zoning board, there are a couple of significant changes. But let me first go through the changes we made that we discussed when we last met. When we last met, we talked about the siding. If you remember, this was the previous submission, had a lot of white board and batten siding. And we since have made the siding predominantly cedar shake with just accents of the white board and batten. The window trim was asked to be a wider trim. So we went from a 1x6 board, which you know is 5.5 inches, to a 4-inch board, which is 3.5, to a 6-inch board, which is 5.5 inches wide for the trim. The cupola over the garage area, the living space over the garage area, was originally 12 feet, and we did reduce that to 8 feet wide, so a third less. The breezeway, the breezeway, this was not a change we discussed at HPC, this was a change from the zoning board, was just shy of 25 feet long, and it has been reduced to 10 feet. So I'm going to pop over the site plan. The garage and master bedroom, which was very far back on the property, has now moved closer to the house, about 19 feet, just shy of 19 feet, to reduce that long breezeway. The front entry, actually, we are keeping the 2 existing trees at the front of the property as per the request of the Shade Tree Commission. And we've reoriented the front of the house to be centered with the door and steps here. They were off center previously. And a portion in an effort to reduce floor area ratio, a portion of the second floor here became a screen porch as opposed to a enclosed room. And again, those 3 changes were a product of the zoning board. And the previous 3 items I mentioned were in response to our previous meeting. So the rendering, we had renderings previously, they've been updated for the new configuration. So the overall building length got significantly reduced, again, just shy of 19 feet, and pulling that forward. And then, you know, the siding change, the trim increased in size, the cupola decreased in size, but the overall character of the house overall stayed the same as the initial approval.
Christina, this is, for me anyway, a significant improvement over what we had looked at before. So I appreciate your embracing the recommendations of the HPC. I would open it up for discussion. Does anyone in the commission have a question or comment about this application?
I have a question, which is, I don't know if I am not looking in the right place or something, but do we have anything that shows the streetscape? What's next to this house?
So this house is on a corner, and you know what, let me pull one up. I think it was in the original submission, but let me pull up that photograph. So this is the, oh, that's adjacent across the street. Sorry, I didn't do adjacent. So this is the rear portion of our property here. And this is the house immediately adjacent to the house on Mount Vernon side. We've pulled away from that house significantly. So we pulled away 19 additional feet. So it's about 30 feet away from the property line from this adjacent house. And then adjacent on the Jefferson side, not Jefferson, on the Patterson side is
This motel.
well, the motel is actually 3 down. There's a Gambrel house, and then there's a little rancher here.
Okay, thank you.
And then across the street are those the 3-story sort of French, are they condos, I imagine?
Yeah.
And then a 2-story house, and then the original photo, that larger terracotta colored house is directly across the street on the Jefferson side or Mount Vernon side.
Thank you. Other questions or comments by the commission? Once again, thank you for embracing the changes suggested. I think the project is, as I said, significantly improved. I would offer a motion that we accept the plan as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Copeland, seconded by Mr. Becker. Ms. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell,
Yes.
Ms. Bisagno,
Yes.
Mr. Testa,
Yes.
Mr. Becker,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes, before we finalize that, I heard the phone ringing. Was somebody calling about this project?
Yes, it's an applicant. They did not furnish me with their email address. So we are not letting them in. All it says is iPhone, and I'm assuming it might be the next application. So I'll let you know in a moment.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So Judy, we've taken the vote. Everyone said yes, so.
Okay.
Okay, application approved. Next order of business is Colson, 1245 Washington Street, block 1129, lot 28. This is a contributing property, and it's for a porch and exterior stair. Was someone representing this application?
Yes, Chairman, Paul Farnan again here for Fulcrum Design Group, representing Harry Colson, who's also in attendance.
Terrific, good.
My plan is it seems to work better when I share the screen, so that's just what I'm going to do, if that's okay with everybody.
Yes.
Does everyone see that? Okay.
We do.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. So as previously mentioned, this is 1245 Washington Street. It is contributing. The proposed project includes a porch addition, alterations, and renovations to the exterior as well. Here you can see it's an indicated lot 28. It's on Washington Street, just across from the perpendicular intersection of East Street. And as well as on the key map, you can see this is the property here as well. It's a large lot compared to those in the immediate vicinity. So here we're showing the existing architectural site plan to the left, the proposed site plan on the right. There are alterations to an addition to the pool side of the house, as well as widening an existing stair there. Right now it's a concrete stair, but the proposed stair and landing would be composed of wood, finished with mahogany decking. Similarly, on the left-hand side here of the site plan, what you will see later on in the elevations is a proposed side porch that's accessible from the driveway on this side of the house. It's our zoning information and site data. So these are the existing, that's obviously the front of the house facing Washington Street. I'm sure most of you are likely familiar with this structure. The building has evolved over, probably a century since it was built. The most obvious portion of a later building campaign is a volume that was constructed towards the rear of the building sometime in the 70s, if I'm not mistaken. And that features a lot of casement windows, vinyl clad casement windows. So the intent is to replace them, which we'll show later. So this is the front of the building. Another perspective view. This is the side of the building, which we'll call the south side of the building. This is the volume that I was referring to. All casement windows, or in this case, this one case, picture window, basically flanked by two casements on either side. This is the opposite side of the window. The opposite side of the house, on the pool side. And you can see this volume that I just mentioned from the opposite side, and a lower one here closer to the pool at the ground level. The proposed scope of work to the exterior is the significant aspect of it, aside from the new construction or the addition of the side porch, is effectively residing the entire building. There's a lot of cement or asbestos fiber shingles. That's the bulk of the siding at this house. There are original cedar shake on, this front second to third story volume. The intent is to retain that and replicate it in certain areas, while also replicating other horizontal clapboard siding that we have found present at the house as well. Here's some of the context in the surrounding neighborhood. This property is directly across the street on the corner of East and Washington. This is the opposite corner of that intersection. I'm sure many are familiar with this building here. I'm sorry, this one, John the barber. He's right across the street also, or just down the street. So this is some images of the neighborhood. These are the proposed modifications. It shows the interior work, but what I know we're most focused on is this new side porch here. This is a small addition off of a bump out, which is there presently. And this is the widening of the poolside stair that is concrete. And our intent is to provide a wood frame mahogany finished stair there as well. So this is an existing elevation. Also, I want to take note of the southeast corner of the front porch is, at one point it was and presently is, enclosed with jalousie windows. The application seeks for the replacement of those windows with something that matches the 6/1 double hung windows. Here's the side view, again indicating these casement windows to be removed in their entirety. All casement windows will be removed from this house if approval is granted for that, which I would assume it might be. Again, the poolside elevation also indicating the same, casements to be removed, cement / asbestos fiber siding to be removed as well. And this is the proposed front elevation. Again, we want to replicate the cedar siding that is present, that we know to be original or presumed to be original in the second and third story volume, replicate that on basically the skirt walls of the porch there. And then replace the bulk of the siding, again, that cement asbestos fiber siding, with wider horizontal plank, wood horizontal plank siding, clapboard siding, I should say. This is the side porch that we want to construct. As you can see, all of the other casement windows have been replaced by 6/1 gelled wen double hung wood windows. The side porch is designed to replicate the column structure of the front porch while matching the pitch of the main roof of the house. Just to add a little bit more dimension, we explored the idea of a shed roof at the same pitch of this side portion of the front porch. But it didn't really, in our opinion, lacked, dimension. It kind of still made that long 70s era addition at the rear of the building look very flat. So our proposal includes a gable roof over that porch that matches the pitch of the main roof of the house. This is the opposite side. Again, as I previously mentioned, removing the single casement windows here, replacing them with the 6/1 double hung. And this is an expansion of an existing volume at the exact same area, which was an addition at some point in time. And then here is the widening of the stair, which is really the removal of that concrete stair I'd mentioned previously. These are just close-up images of the existing structure, which we intend to match in kind. And that is a summary of what our application is putting forward, and we're more than happy to engage in dialogue and answer any questions that there may be, but appreciate the time.
Thank you, Paul. Paul, can I ask, before we turn it over to the commission, the gelled windows, it's not always clear. They're wood, but it's not always clear whether they're vinyl clad. And what we look for is the gelled window that shows a primed exterior. Is that what you're proposing?
We're proposing 100% custom wood 6/1 that is primed and will be painted in the field or, upon installation.
And what I would ask for the file, if you could provide a cut sheet on that window that clearly shows that it's primed exterior.
Certainly. May I ask, Chairman, if you've had any submission of such a cut sheet in the past? And I asked that honestly, sincerely. I've reached out specifically to a gelled rep and haven't received a cut sheet for that particular product until basically the order is fulfilled.
Yes, it's not uncommon for us to ask for a cut sheet on the windows since there's so much confusion. Many manufacturers say it's an all wood window and then they clad it with vinyl or aluminum. The order would show that it's primed on the outside. But what we need for the file is the evidence that the gelled window that you're suggesting, and that I would assume we're going to approve, is in fact primed exterior.
I'm not sure where I got this, but I did save it specifically because this is the particular window. So you're welcome to come in and look at this. It may have come from Cape May Lumber, I don't really know, or the manufacturer. But I do have a copy of it.
I'm sorry, is that Judy speaking?
Yes.
Okay. Okay,
W
excellent,
2500 wood windows double hung.
excellent. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
In
That
the
is-
same vein as the other things in the list, in the column portion, you say new Doric columns to match the existing, but you don't say what the substance of the columns are.
Okay, that's fair. They are wood. That is the intent, but point noted, Mr. Testa. Appreciate you bringing that to my attention.
Well, you did so well in all the other stuff, so I thought I'd just point that out to you.
Thank you, thank you.
I have
Hi,
a
this-
question. The asphalt shingle roof, is that over sheathing or is it over old cedar shakes? Or do you know?
As far as I know, it's over sheathing. But I would state that I'm not 100% certain of that.
Because if you see the evidence of the cedar shakes, we'll have to go back and do the original. And that's,
Understood.
that's part of the standards.
Yes, Mr. Cogswell, I do know that is to be expected. I will say that based on from what I can tell on the inside, there is no portion of the house where it's accessible or readily visible to see the underside of the roof structure. So as far as I was on the front porch roof examining the soffit, the overhang, and I had not noticed anything that would indicate existing cedar shake under that asphalt shingle. So that's all I can speak to that.
But you're just talking about putting a new porch roof on to match the asphalt, right? On the new porch.
That is correct.
The original roof or what passes for the asphalt roof. It's just the new porches.
That's correct, Mr. Testa.
Yep. Which you will do in asphalt.
That's what we're requesting approval for. Yes,
Yeah.
Mr. Testa.
Yep.
Hi, this is Bea Pisagno. When I was a little girl, I lived in that house before it was renovated in 1959 by Harry Moak. So I'm very familiar with this and very happy that you're going to restore this grand old lady. But I do have a question, and perhaps it was grandfathered in, but we were just talking about parking in the front. I go by this house every day on my way to school, and I noticed that there is a new kind of gravel driveway if you're facing it to the left of it. And then there's also a driveway that has been there for about 20, 25 years in the front on the right. And you've got cars parked right in the front yard. Are you considering doing anything with that?
Yes, with which of the two? First of all, thank you for mentioning that. It's always nice to kind of hear, that kind of background.
I've been in every room of that house at least 50 times. That's where we grew up. I lived 2 doors away and down in the gray house.
Okay.
But anyhow, yeah, I am talking the new one. If I'm facing the house, the new one, which has just appeared in the last several months, is on the left and it goes all the way to the back.
Yes.
The other one, which is somewhat, unseemly for the grandeur of the house, is on the right, and it's somewhat of a half driveway right in front of the pool. And that is where people park, and we're talking about cars parked basically on the lawn in the front of a home. I was wondering what the plans are, if any, to remediate that.
So I can't speak to the right, the original driveway, we'll call it. There are no plans.
Excuse me, the original driveway, the house went all the way around to Lafayette Street. And the driveway was in the back. If you wanted to go home, you had to go down to Lafayette Street and come in from the back. There was no original driveway. When the house was sold the first time, the property was divided. Buzzy was given the back, and that's why there was no driveway in the front.
Interesting.
Actually, I can address that. Excuse me, I'm sorry to interject, but our compliance officer, Bruce Brighton, was out at the house. They do have an approved and review for that driveway B. The new driveway you're seeing.
Right.
Bruce sent the picture. I did email it to everyone. So
It's not that one. It's the one that has been there for about 25 years.
It sounds I'm understanding correctly, that the concrete driveway shown as existing on the right is not one they're proposing to do anything with.
That's correct, Mr. Testa.
Yeah, so it doesn't look like it's really needed for anything, but you're not proposing to do anything with it, I take it.
Correct, Mr. Testa. The right driveway, which may not be original, but we'll say is original in the context of the other driveway that Ms. Bisagno is referencing, right? So the concrete driveway, there's no plan to do anything with as part of this project. With respect to the newer driveway on the south side of the building, that's a previous submission to both the HPC and the zoning board, as far as I understand.
I wasn't questioning the legality of it.
Sure.
I was
Sure,
just, now that they have that, do they also need the concrete driveway?
I'll make the same gratuitous suggestion. The house would really be improved by having a larger front lawn that takes over the space of the existing driveway. That's the point I think you're making, B.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Jim.
That's a fair point.
It's a magnificent house, and giving more size to that right-hand lawn by getting rid of an unseemly driveway. You've got the functional one on the left. It just would add to the magnificence of the house rather than having this concrete pad sitting there. So yes, you could put a car on it, but you do have a long driveway now.
Correct. So, I mean, both fair points. I would not disagree with either one of those. It's, again, not part of this application. And as far as I know, at this point in time, is not being considered to rip up the driveway. I know that there's going to be significant expenditure just on the renovation of the house itself. So maybe it'll be another phase in the future. But I can't speak to that.
Sure.
Okay, he was approved to put a paver driveway in, and Bruce confirmed today that he put a gravel driveway in.
So I can speak to that because I had a feeling that may be brought up, and that is the intent is the gravel is a sub base to the paver. It is not a finished gravel driveway, and there will be a center aisle, so to speak, of sod that is running between the two paver strips, which was initially submitted for, and that is because really over the course of the winter, since the site was prepped for that new driveway, they just haven't laid, the seed or the sod, I should say. But that is part of the application. I understand that was formally submitted, and it's still a work in progress. This is a separate application.
Paul, it certainly looks like that driveway could go into the backyard and have multiple parking spots on that side of the house in the backyard.
Right. Again, that Mr. Carroll, that's a valid point, and I believe that's the intent. Separate from finishing it, and from the other driveway on what is I'll call the north side of the house. That was the intent for the majority of the parking to be lined along that south property line, and that is in a lot of ways why we're proposing this porch. That side porch is probably going to be the most utilized entrance to the house. So that's in the context of that driveway. I think that I would hope that would make sense to the committee.
We can't make you change what is there that's not in the application. But you're listening very carefully, and I know you think it would improve it, and hopefully you'll have some influence over them. One more, since I have the microphone, you are mentioned painting the cedar shakes, correct?
That
being the news. I hope you're considering a solid stain or clear stain rather than painting. Stains do much better down here on cedar shakes than paint that sits on the surface and flakes off pretty easily.
They're too oily.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I would agree with that. I know that just looking at the existing front of the house, that was kind of the, I guess, the justification for trying to marry the two different siding materials is to make them look similar. But from a stain or a paint perspective, that'll be something that we discuss ourselves with the client.
Yeah, may I make a motion to approve this, or do you want to continue with discussion and I can go on with the things I really like about what you did? Are we at that stage yet?
Yes, I think we are, unless there's someone has a question or about the application itself.
I'd just like to applaud the replacement of the jalousie windows and the 60s picture window and the 70s wrought iron handrails and the asbestos siding. I mean, bringing it back into alignment with its craftsman character, I think is really well done. Thank you.
Gosh, John, you said things much better than I was going to say, but there isn't a thing I think that you did here that is objectionable that we would find wrong or doesn't substantially improve that house, other than maybe issuing an invitation to come back and see it after you're done. I would move acceptance of the application in final form as submitted.
I'll second that.
I will third that with the cut sheet being provided for the right gel windows. Which can, you can get from Judy.
Motion by Mr. Testa, second by Mr. Becker. Ms. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell,
Yes.
Ms. Pisagno,
yes,
Mr. Testa,
Yes.
Mr. Becker,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate your time. Have a great night.
thank you.
Thank you.
Dude.
thank you.
Next order of business, GC Ventures, 314 Cleghorn Place, Block 1031, Lot 63 and 4. Non-contributing, this is for demolition. Do I have someone representing
No,
this
Warren, for
application?
clarification, it's not for demolition.
Yeah, we've done that part, didn't we?
We did conceptual already also. I had emailed Judy. Judy, did you correct that?
I have new residents on mine.
Yeah.
So do
that's-
I.
That's at least what the application presents.
Residents, we've already gotten conceptual approval. Yeah, thank you for proceeding with the one before so quickly. So we're here we're here for final approval after receiving conceptual approval at the prior meeting. So the
Okay.
demo was, I don't know how many meetings ago, but
Well, I stand corrected. I'm reading off of my agenda.
no, I understand. That's no problem. I just wanted to clarify, and that's Paul Grenna there, and he's there with Neil Clancy, and they're the owners of the property. I'm Steve Fenwick, and I just wanted to go over this new submission, the second submission for final, and describe the comments of the board from the previous submission. There was concerns about the base of the building being in stone, and then the roof line of the house, and there was a request for streetscape photos. I mean, we kind of provided neighborhood and streetscape photos. There's not really much of a streetscape there because of the unusual configuration of the area. And there was a concern about the fence heights, and you had also requested a survey with grades. I think that's a summary of the concerns of the board at the last hearing. So unfortunately, I'm not going to share my screen with you, but I'm going to ask you to refer to our submission drawings. And to clarify the new information requested, we provided on A4-1 streetscape photos and neighborhood photos, A4.2. And we also provided at the end of the package the survey of the showing topography. You can see it's really an unusual property for Cape May. It's very low ground. I mean, you have grades there of 3.3, you know. It's right next to the MUA building. That's where they put their pump station, because that's where Cape Island Creek is running out to the sea. And so we're in a low piece of ground, and that all kind of weighs into the design and the application. I could start out by saying we took your recommendation to substitute stone with brick, although there are some houses in Cape May that have stone, but not many, but we're happy to take your recommendation, and that's shown on this resubmission. We also went to soften the roof line of the house, and to help you understand that, we provided additionally, because we didn't provide these drawings on the prior submission, through 3D elevations, 3D drawings. They're labeled A 2.1 and A 2.2. And if you see that we've added a dormer on A 2.1 back behind the doorway over the stairway, which will help to light up the stairway inside. And you can see that it's similar to the other dormer evident in the rear of the house towards the MUA. If you look at A 2.2, the left rear view. I hope I'm not going too fast. Slow me down if you would like me to. And those again, that information is clarified in my old-fashioned eyes and ways on A 2.3, which is the orthogonal elevations. On the upper left corner, you can see the dormer added. And of course, that roof is receding substantially. It's the same roof line as occurs on the left elevation along, oh, it's not Flaghorn, it is Cape Hart Lane. Oh, there was another concern, which I don't think I mentioned, it was fence height. So you were concerned with fence height along the neighbor's property. We had called for a 6-foot fence. It turns out, I wasn't aware of it last meeting, that there is an existing 6-foot fence height along the neighbor's property. What we, along the Claghorn Place fence, where it faces the street, we've made that fence 5 foot high, and should point out that there is a 12-inch fretwork on that, open fretwork on that top of that fence. If you look at A5 on the top right corner, you can see the wooden fence with the call them pickets, call them a fretwork on top of the fence to soften it and lower it down visually. But Paul and Neil have some big dogs, and they don't want them getting over that fence. And the zoning allows a 6-foot fence at that location, and we're calling for 5 with a 12-inch visual drop. And I should also point out that pursuant to that, because the land is so low, and just to remind you, because we went over this last time, we put a retaining wall in front of the house to reduce the apparent height of the house. So if you look at those photos of the neighborhood houses, you can get an idea that some of the houses, certainly the ones down at the end of Cape Hart Lane, one of them is, you're looking at the back of a house facing North Street. They're about as high as you can get. They're essentially 4-story buildings. We did the house additions at 329 Congress across the street. That has, that's a similar height to this house proposed. It's a 2.5-story house with a tall crawl space. And we've reduced that apparency of that crawl space with that retaining wall to give it a more historic context. We're doing the best we can in this very low area. So we have 2 sets of those photos. Some of the houses are similar in height. 340 Congress is similar. 313 Congress is similar. Some of the roof pitches are similar, some are steeper, some are lower. Yeah, I think that's it. I think I'm gonna open up the questions to me from the board, and unless Paul and Neil have anything they want to add at this time.
No, thank you, Steve.
Okay.
Mr.
Okay.
Chair, and Tom Carroll speaking. Unless the fence rules have changed, you can have 6-foot fences from the rear backyard, starting at the rear of the house, around the backyard, up to the other side where the house picks up again. Anything in front of that has to be 4 feet. And that does not mean that fretwork can be above that 4 feet.
Yeah, that's correct. But that's in the front yard, Tom, and we're not in the front yard. So we're allowed a 6-foot fence where we have it.
What do you call the front yard?
I call the front yard what your zoning board calls it. It's a setback from the front property line on Glaghorn. Let me check that for you. It's 25 feet. 25 feet. And that's where we kind of have the retaining wall. If you, Tom, if you look at the 3D drawing, it's kind of helpful. The A2.2. The retaining wall on that drawing is approximately at the edge of the front yard, at which point you would require to have a 4-foot fence. So we can landscape in front of that if you want to reduce its apparent height. But we're allowed to have a 6-foot fence. We don't really feel we need it. We're matching the 6-foot fence along the sideline because that's what's there, and we'd like to kind of hide it. But the 4-foot fence requirement, if we were to continue that side yard fence, and rightly so, it's this way in most towns, we would have to drop down at the front yard setback to 4 feet to continue forward. But we're several feet behind it. I don't know how many, maybe 10 feet further back.
Well, it still looks to me like you have a 6-foot fence on 2 sides of the house, which would be considered side yards that come up to the front of the house. And that's my understanding where 4-foot fences are required versus 6 feet, which are only allowed in the backyard. Maybe we'll have to ask Skip to look this over as our zoning officer.
Yeah, that'd be fine. That'd be fine. I'm confident that we got this right. We got a rear yard in the back. We got a side yard on the right. We got a front yard on Glaghorn.
Let me try and understand. You're representing to us that it's your belief that a 6-foot is allowed, but you're proposing 5 feet with the open fretwork.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
I want to get the bidding straight here.
No, yeah, it's important, and that only goes from the side yard fence to the edge of the house. It's not affecting the streetscape substantially. You know, it's de minimis relative to the house, you know, because it's not running across the front yard. It's just, I think it's, I don't know, 12 feet, 10 feet, something like that, 10, 12 feet. Okay, it's to the roof slope. So it's to the edge of the roof is 10 feet. So we're 12.8 feet of that fence. That's all. It's a very short piece with a gate in it. Yeah, and then it butts right into the wall of the house.
Yeah, think I see the gate. Yeah.
You see it on that 3D elevation?
A2.3.
A2.2 shows it even better, the right front view.
Yep.
The top drawing on A2.
Yeah, I see it. And you've got it dropping in that 3D.
Yeah.
You've got it
drops
dropping
right in with the base of the
a
house.
foot. Yeah, you're dropping it a foot from the 6-footer.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
It seems a little queer, but okay, fine. I mean, I hear you.
Yeah, Tom, it meets the zoning. I mean, I'm confident. We're happy to, Skip has to approve anything, you know that, so, yeah.
Well, I know that, and I'm not picking on you, but I'd see an awful lot of 6-foot fence here and only no fence in the front yard. So I would like this to be checked out to make sure we're not having a zoning violation of something we've approved.
I hear you. I hear you.
Any other questions or comments from the commission? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that the application be approved with a careful check by the zoning officer as to the heights of the fence in the various positions on the property.
Or in other words, subject to compliance with the fence rules relating to that, to that area.
Yes, that makes sense. Sure.
I'll second that motion.
Cool.
Judy, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Motion by Mr. Carroll, seconded by Mr. Becker. Ms. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell,
Yes.
Ms. Pisagno,
Yes.
Mr. Testa,
Yes.
Mr. Becker,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll,
Yes.
and Mr. Copeland.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you so
thank
much.
you.
Thank you for your help and advisement. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Steve.
Next order of business is Franceschi. Sorry for the pronunciation.
We would say
Five-
French, but okay.
514 Elmira Street, block 1054, lot 11. This is a contributing property seeking an addition in the rear.
Right.
Do I have somebody here?
Yes, Vidette Franceschi. I'm one of the owners. My husband's sitting next to me. We're on an iPhone, and this is the only way I could do it here because our internet is not very powerful and it will kick me off. So I'm not sharing any papers. You have the packet in front of you. We're looking to do a very simple 16 by 24 addition going straight back on the western side of the property and indented 10 feet on the eastern side of the property because there is an existing shower on that side and because it's a pre-existing non-conforming property, right? That's very close to the property edge. We've got just about 3 feet on that back rear corner on the eastern side. So we're going to go back 24 by 16 and we're putting in a bedroom and bathroom, and it's really under duress kind of thing because I was diagnosed in August with lung cancer. I love this property. I want to stay in this property, but I have now fallen down those blasted stairs 2 times and my husband is holding his chest with it. I can't do it. So I want to originally we had anticipated doing a 2-story addition. We're doing something very simple. We're seeking not to destroy the historic character of this wonderful poor man's cottage. We've owned it since 2004. We love it. But I would like to remain in it, and I can't do that unless I put a bedroom and a bathroom downstairs. So basically that's it. We have plenty of room. I've already spoken. I'm trying to jump the gun with things so that I don't get stuck up in red tape. I spoke with Skip. He told me no problem. We've got plenty of footage, plenty of space. He spoke with Lou regarding the elevation issue, and it's not even an issue. We can go straight back as a contributing home, and that's the way we propose it, to go straight back. And I'm going to leave it open for questions. It's better to do it that way since you guys have the packet in front of you.
But we don't have architectural plans.
No, you don't, because the architectural plans, they're like 8 months out now, and I don't have 8 months to wait. So I thought, since it's a straight back plan, what I did do was a design, and you have that shows the back. It's going to go straight back. And I sat with Tom Carroll on this about the windows. The windows are going to be the same 2-pane gel wen windows in the back, all wood. The siding is going to be cedar siding, the same that's here, straight back, all wood. There's nothing going to be, skewed up in terms of, we're not looking to put, again, this is a very simple cottage. It was a little box. It's just under 1,000 square feet. It's been impossible to socially distance at this point. And I can't tell you how difficult the last 2 years have been, but now I have lung cancer and I'm in chemotherapy every 3 weeks. So I can't tell you how difficult the rest of my life is going to continue to be. I can't be around people that have any kind of respiratory tract infection or even a chance of it. So I'm trying to streamline this. I don't have architectural plans because there is no one available to do these things. I mean, I have a friend here on the block who's been waiting months for architectural plans. And I don't have months. Like I said, I'm in chemotherapy every 3 weeks. Right now, I'm doing very, very good. But I don't know how long I'm going to have that. And it's advanced lung cancer. It's inoperable. So I'd rather get this done than have it still in the works when I'm not here to enjoy it.
Warren, I did visit this property, spent some time with it, walked through exactly what they want to do. And I'm very sympathetic with it, even without an architectural plan. I don't know what the construction office will say about that. But
I've already spoken with I spoke with everybody.
Excuse
And
me.
my understanding is I have a contractor and he did put together what they're going to need. And as long as my husband is pulling the permits, which my husband can do, he can pull the permits. We're good to go with hand-drawn drawings. And again, there's nothing fancy about this. I'm not looking to change, not one bit. I love this cottage just the way it is, but it is tiny.
If I could continue speaking, please.
Yes.
I'm very sympathetic with this. There is endless land in the back of this yard. The addition will be well screened from any visibility on the street. On the street. The house is a very simple little house. The materials are going to be matched. I would give it my full support and try to keep it moving fast because of the condition that the people are in.
I recognize the dimensions, and I want to say I recognize the materials list. They seem to completely conform with everything necessary to get an approval here. I can see the dimensions and I can see the construction. Would you just tell me what you intend to do on the roof? Because I can't quite get it from the CAD CAM sheet I have here.
Yes.
Would you please just on that a little?
It's going to be an asphalt roof and the pitch is 6 and it's the opposite of the pitch that is on the 2-story. So, my construction fellow, he's there. Brian, you here?
Yes, I am here.
Yes, you want to speak to this a little bit?
Yes. How are you doing? This is Brian Leach with Leach's Construction. And the roof would be a 6 pitch. And what we would do is we would do high definition asphalt shingles on the back. You have right now asphalt shingles on the front porch roof. And I do know because there's no soffit underneath of that on the front porch, it is plywood that's there now underneath. There is no pre-existing cedar shakes on the front porch.
But the idea here is to bring this addition, made it to the house and have that roof. It's a simple pitch running into the house perpendicular to the existing pitch, if I'm understanding correctly.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Right. Okay. I mean, I think this may justify a departure from any requirement for architectural drawings. I think this is a special instance. I get a clear enough picture to let me come to the conclusion that putting this in the back and using the materials that are proposed, taking those dimensions and visualizing the roof, that this doesn't really negatively affect the status of the house. So I'd be in favor of giving this an expedited treatment.
Thank you.
Could I ask, who in the construction office did you talk to?
I spoke with Skip in zoning, and Skip went back and spoke with Lou, but Skip told me that we can put in hand drawings for, as long as my husband is pulling the permits, and he is pulling permits, we don't have to go with architectural plans. I can draw the plans. And the kitchen, of course, I have to go sit with a designer because I'm taking a piece of our kitchen right now is in our living room, basically. It's a again, 22 by 23 house. And we're going to move a piece of the kitchen into the back on the other side of this wall.
But
Okay,
you're representing to us, this is a 16 by 24 addition.
that's right. It's a 16 by 24. That's all it is. And right now we have a tiny little box that is a living room. And there's actually a half bathroom in here too, and a utility room with washer and dryer. I mean, it's a very small house. And we're not looking to change that historic imprint.
No, you've made your presentation. It's, we understand and we're sympathetic. But then again, you know, we want to dot i's and cross t's. Brian,
right.
could I ask you?
Yes.
You're going to do the construction. Are you
Correct.
going to present any more detailed plan to the construction office than what we're looking at tonight?
Yeah, we'll put a little bit more in there, into the lumber that will be used. Of course, 2x6 walls. To bring everything up to code, insulation, everything will be at code, and we will just match the outside with what is existing there now.
And when will you have that plan available?
I believe that we have a lot of it together now. There's just a little bit more to do. I mean, we can have this together for them by next week to get this into the township, to Jason and them guys to get approval for that.
It seems to me that we're all understanding what the issue is and we're sympathetic, and it seems like it's an appropriate addition. It seems like if we were to make a motion, but asking for those plans to be submitted to the HPC at the same time that you submit them to the construction office, it seems like that would make sense for us to make sure, in fact, that what we're doing here is what we're agreeing on.
Okay.
Well, we could also approve, subject to that condition, and with that, to review that condition, we could also put it in the hands of the review committee to look at what comes in.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll make the motion. I'll move
I
to
have a
approve.
question. Can I ask, just so I'm clear on what it is that you're asking for in terms of the plans? Whatever is going to go into the construction office for the construction permits, is that what you're?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
It sounded like Brian was going to submit additional building materials and some sketches or drawings. And what I think we're saying is we would make those a condition of the approval to be submitted to the HPC.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll make the motion to approve the application as submitted in final form, but subject to the condition that when additional drawings and data are submitted to the construction office for permits, that those same materials be also submitted to the HPC, and that they be subject to the HPC's review committee, the in-review committee, to review them to be sure that that there's compliance.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Does that work for us?
Yes, thank you.
Fantastic. I have one more question. It's Brian Leach again with Leach's Construction. I have one more question. There was a question about the elevation, flood elevation. Right now, that house sits, I believe, at Badette. It's at 8, correct? I'm coming into this a little late here. They were way into this, starting this process and planning all this when they reached out to me. So,
right, and my understanding, I need to speak to this now. My understanding I spoke with Skip, who talked to Lou, who referred me to Lou Belasco, and then I went and I read about historical structures and the floodplains. And as long as it's a contributing house, to not change the historic character of the house and the imprint of the house, I can go straight back, that it wouldn't be a problem. It would be exempt from any kind of elevation. And when Skip mentioned that it was a historic contributing house, that was in its favor. And so did Lou Vito. And then Lou Belasco said that really, if the HPC says that the proposal will move forward as it is, that would then be, the resolution would say that the house elevation would remain the way it is. So it is at 8, and it's been at 8 since the 1800s, and it's never had a flooding event. So I'm assuming it's good to go for a little bit
I
longer.
think you're saying it, you're choosing not to elevate this historic structure.
Yes, well,
Not
why would
required,
we?
not required to, and you're choosing not to do it.
Yes, because the house itself sits on, it's 8 feet off of the sidewalk, and the house is what someone referred to me many years ago as a poor man's cottage. And to take this house and elevate it, and we discussed this years ago and thought about it, and we really thought that it would change the historic character of this very simple structure. And there's very few of these around town. Stephen Smith's is another one, and I don't want to change it. I love it. And you see the gardens that I've created around it. It is a true Victorian cottage, very simple cottage, and I don't want to make it into something it isn't. So
Okay.
I think all this means I don't have to change my motion.
Thank you.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring that up so that the committee was aware of the elevation of the property and all that.
Thank you.
Here we have a motion by Mr. Testa, seconded by Mr. Cogswell. Ms. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell,
Yes.
Ms. Pisagno,
Yes.
Mr. Testa,
Yes.
Mr. Becker,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll now open the meeting to the public. We'll give the public a moment to respond. Judy, would you give that telephone number, please?
The meeting is now open to the public at 7:39 PM. The HPC phone number is 609-884-9561.
While we're waiting for the public to react or respond, we can continue with a discussion. The first discussion item is the CLG grant that we have received to research Cape May's city's African-American history and the African-American contribution. We've talked about this before. City Council has employed Nancy Zerbe. Nancy, are you online with us?
I was on mute. Now can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I was muted.
Welcome. Hello. We have been working on this for quite a while. Nancy is put this package together that is required to be presented to the HPC. It was distributed to you earlier, so you would have a chance to look at it and offer any advice or comments or whatever, so that we can meet this obligation of the grant. So with that, does anyone on the HPC have a question or comment about this project schedule that was put together by Nancy Zerbe?
I will comment. I think it's very, very well and put together and inclusive of all kinds of research things. Opens lots of information that would help us guide our historic preservation efforts, our tour efforts, our whole welcoming of this area of history that has remained very much unexplored. Some of these things are already underway thanks to the Harriet Tubman Museum and things like that. But Nancy, you did a wonderful job putting this together, and I can't wait to see us get our teeth into it.
Yeah, Nancy, how well do you anticipate you'll be able to keep up with the schedule that you've got here? It looks like it's pretty ambitious.
It is pretty ambitious, and a lot of it was developed by the State Preservation Office, and the from when we first started talking about the schedule got kind of compressed from both ends because the city, for one thing, the city had to go out to rebid, so there was a month lost there. And then from the back end, when I first was talking to the State Preservation Office, they were saying they wanted to see the final product in August, and August ended up becoming July, beginning of July. So everything became compressed. So there's not a lot of flexibility in order to get everything done.
I mean, it looks to me like aside from the ambitious schedule, this is an extremely thorough, deep view of practically every source and more than any of us could really think of. My only comment is that I've seen, and it hasn't been in the context of doing this kind of research, but rather in the context of doing research about immigrants. It's sometimes very difficult to get into a written record because there are less traces left of those minorities and populations, and I assume that that's going to be a potential difficulty.
Right. Well, no, definitely. In fact, that's why, the purpose of research design is to talk about what type of questions, research questions you're going to ask, how you'll do your research, and then what you expect are some of the results. And I forget the exact wording, but basically I did put in here up front that it's going to be challenging, and there's a lot just by the very nature that especially the early records that it wasn't documented. So it is going to be challenging.
And it tends to be a situation where a lot of times these issues in research are done in large population centers. So for example, if you were doing research in Newark and doing it, say, from the late 19th century and into the early 20th century, there are sources that would never be applicable to Cape May. I mean, the Price and Lee's city directories, for example, before the telephone book.
Right.
And figure out where everybody lived, and the indices always showed what they did. I really have sympathy for you trying to figure that out.
Right. Well, and then it's both wonderful and an extra challenge how much work has been done in Cape May already through, as Tom said, the museum, and I did spend a day about 2 weeks ago, I guess, at CCA and looking through their information, and was so impressed with the material they have. And so a lot of I don't want to say easy picking because that underestimates what they've done, but a lot of work has been pulled together. So finding additional material is going to be an additional challenge. So I'm very aware of that.
Best of luck.
So I would like to just ask a couple questions. So one of which I was just curious about, what is the first draft that you're going to submit or that's going to be submitted on July 1st? What is that?
Well, it'll be, before that, there'll be a draft of the, what is it in, I think it's in May. There's two major parts when you work on the National Register nomination. There's Section 8, which is talking about history and significance, and that's the first part that'll be pulling together. And then Section 7 is description, and that comes later. And so there's going to be, starting with this research design, once you guys approve it, that the city will submit that to the state. There'll be various documents going back and forth with the state. And then July 1st is when I pull together all material, both the Section 7 in terms of where the resources are, their condition, and then the Section 8 significance. So that's kind of in some ways so
that's just related. That's related to what you're doing for the register nomination.
Yes. Yeah. Everything I'm doing relates to that. Yes.
Is that so? So that's like phase 1, right? And then, or phase 2, I guess. And then one thing that I was confused about is what is the public education bulletin booklet? I'm sorry, and the PowerPoint presentation, is that about the register application, or what is that?
Yeah, I mean, everything I was hired for has to do with the register, the research and the register nomination. The booklet will come in the RFP, and in my proposal, it is said very much that it's up to the city when that will occur. But of course, it's going to be far enough down the line so that we have the results. But that's that's a way of the public, another way the public benefiting is to pull that information together in some type of public booklet, especially with Cape May's tourism. The public information meeting is a little, Warren and I have talked about this, a little unusual the way it was written in, I guess it's the RFP that the state helped put together. And it talks about the public information session being early on, and a little bit of what the project will be and what I think, what I expect will come out of it and what might be the ramifications. And of course, it's up to the commission and the city, but Warren and I feel like it might be better to have it be a little bit later down the line when I'm not talking all hypotheticals. And so I think I tried to push that as much as back as far as I could and not get the state a little bit annoyed. So I think that's why I put it into late April.
Mm-hmm. So I would just like to say that I think it's important that the work that's already been done, which I know only a little bit about, but I know some of it because myself right now, I'm involved in another project where we're writing a book about urban renewal. So I'm pretty familiar with how to do this research and what this research actually will entail and what's available and what's not available in Cape May. But the work that CCA and History Committee and people like Hope Gaines and Barbara Dreyfus and Rachel Dolhansik have done, I think should be work that's incorporated into what you're doing so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Right. No, I definitely agree. I've had several conversations with Barbara, with Rachel. We had a Zoom call and then I spent a full day down there. And I totally agree. I mean, there's no point in reinventing. Plus, this is a city project. And the way I look at it is that if I can build upon what they're doing, then my time can go to helping the city find new. So I'm very much trying to look at what they've already done and what hasn't been covered yet. And that was from the very beginning. That's something I've been talking to the folks at CCA about is think about that. Tell me what you haven't done so that I can cover that. And also Rachel did tell me about your project and she gave me your telephone number and you've been on my list of wanting Pip to reach out because I'm very interested in your research project also.
Well, it overlaps this a little bit, right?
Yeah.
It overlaps this a lot, actually.
Yeah. No, I stopped actually. I was down there for a couple of days a few weeks ago, and I'm going to be spending the week of April 4th in Cape May County doing research. And I do plan to. I talked to the city clerk about looking at old city council minutes. And one of the things I'm very interested in is the urban renewal records, the model city. And that's when she mentioned your name. And I teased her. I said, I think I'm following in your footsteps because this was like the second time I've gone to do research and somebody has mentioned your project.
All right. Well, that sounds good. And I just wanted to it is true what Jim says. It can be very difficult to do this kind of research. Because these people disappear, right? And they don't show up where you want them to show up, like on the census or whatever. Mm-hmm. I do think because so much work has been done already, whether it's by the History Committee or Rachel or me or whoever it is, that it just seems like at least that knowledge would be helpful to you. So I look forward to seeing the end of this project. I think it's great.
One of the things, Pip and Jim, one of the things early in, it seems like forever ago, when this idea began and we wanted to amend the National Historic Landmark. And as far as I know, no one had really amended a landmark before. Shortly after we submitted this to the powers to be, we wound up with a seminar being put on by the Park Service, the Secretary of Interior, offering guidance on how to amend a national landmark status. So I think we're really on the leading edge with this project. It didn't take much discussion with the state before they were in agreement to do this. And they, in fact, had recommended Nancy to this project to me. So Nancy has already been involved and is really quite experienced. Nancy, it might be helpful if you would just spend a minute, explaining your background. It might be helpful to the group.
Sure. I have an undergraduate degree in history and a master's in historic preservation. And when I got out of grad school, I went to work for the State Historic Preservation Office. And I was there 13 years, 5 years on staff and 8 as the administrator of the office. Left there in early 90s after my husband and I had our second daughter. And then shortly thereafter started doing consulting, and gradually as the girls got in school more, transitioned into full-time. And in my consulting, I have been, I do a variety. It's all historic preservation consulting. Some of it's regulatory, helping public agencies get through reviews of what they need to do to minimize their impact on historic resources, but also National Register nominations. I've done 33 National Register nominations, and it's been a variety of historic districts, individual buildings, structures, thematic. It's been quite a range. And I don't know how many, maybe about 6 already in Cape May County. So it's, and I'm just really, I'm very, very excited about this project. But I fully realize the challenges involved.
One of the things that part of the idea came from, but was some earlier research that, in fact, my wife and I went to the library and courthouse to look at churches of Cape May. And we were really interested in gathering some information about the AME Church, which is a whole separate and another project. And we found a bunch of historic information about the churches of Cape May. And if you can believe they omitted the AME Church. So people were writing histories of the churches of Cape May decades ago and consciously omitted the AME Church as one of the churches in Cape May. So yeah, finding information, documenting it, and getting an amendment to our National Historic Landmark is going to be quite a challenge.
Yeah. Well, it's the finding the information. And then, I mentioned the section 8, that's history and significance. So for any area of significance, you need to have some historic background, general context. And one of the challenges is that, additional challenges, is that there's so many different areas that this covers. I mean, so you have the churches, so you have the history of the AME Church and the importance of religion and churches to the African American community. But you have education and segregation, you have civil rights, you have the whole urban renewal. I mean, there are so many, and Underground Railroad, and there's so many different areas of both doing the research and getting the information, and then having historic context information. So it's going to be a busy few months. There's no doubt about it.
So one thing that might be helpful is get Joan Berkey's register nomination for the Owen Coachman House.
Okay.
And she has, you can pull it. Well, you know how to do that. And she has like a whole history in there that will be, I think, a nice fast track for you. And of course, you know Joan, I'm sure. So it's all referenced and all that kind of stuff. But it's really a good overall summary of African American, not just in Cape May City, but in the county. So it's got a context.
Terrific.
Good.
So when you read through this, if you have any thoughts, get that information to Judy, who will then get it to Nancy. And of course, time is of the essence here, because this project
Is fast.
as you can imagine, the project got several delays bringing it to life. I'm delighted that it's to life, and we have a grant, and it's supported at the national level. It's supported at the New Jersey Historic Preservation Office level. So this is a really good project for Cape May.
Now, will the commission be able to approve this? I mean, it would be great to be able to get it to the Historic Preservation Office prior to your next meeting.
I would, yes, we can do that. I would make a motion that the Historic Preservation Commission has reviewed the project schedule for the Ethnic Heritage African American CLG project, and is in agreement with the concept and was impressed with the detail.
I'll second the motion.
Motion by Mr. Copeland, seconded by Mr. Carroll. Ms. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell,
Yes.
Ms. Pisagno,
Yes.
Mr. Testa,
Yes.
Mr. Becker,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes. So we'll get that resolution to you, Nancy, as soon as we can. So you
Okay.
can go forward.
Okay. And then if anybody, going forward, if anybody has any thoughts, suggestions, questions, feel free. I mean, this is a project for the city, so I welcome any of your input. And Pip, if I could arrange, I have your telephone number. Can I call and get to see you when I'm down on the weekend, April 4th?
I have to look at my schedule, but
Okay, well,
I still work. So if I can arrange it, I will do it.
okay, sounds good. Thank you. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nancy.
Sounds good.
Warren, can we close the public?
We have no comments so far from the public. So let's close the discussion to the public. And let's move on to the next discussion point. And then I have a discussion point I want to add. So there's two more issues to deal with. Cape May Promenade arches. Lorraine, you have taken the lead on this project, for lack of a better term. Did you want to make a comment?
Sorry, I'm trying to unmute myself. Yes, this is in the planning stages between Tom Carroll and John Becker. The two of them have presented the drawing that everyone has in front of them today. This is a preliminary sketch, very similar to the old historic arches that used to be on the boardwalk or on the promenade. I guess, John, do you want to take it from there as far as the sketch that you designed?
Sure. If I could share my screen, I'd just like to take 5 minutes and show you guys some images, if you don't mind. Okay, so can you guys all see my screen? So here's the drawing that you all had in your packet. This was presented to a small committee of folks. Primarily, my understanding is it's intended to be funded privately from primarily the Fund for Cape May. And somewhere between 3 and 6 of these, in between the Convention Hall and Primal, so essentially between Gurney Street and Decatur. And if we look at some images that are available from the Historical Society, this is what some of those arches looked like. Now, there were various ones of them of different sizes all along the promenade. This is a very typical one. It's about 16 to 17 feet wide and somewhere on the order of 15 to 16 feet high. And let me get rid of that. Let's go here. So you can see that this is looking from the 400 block of Beach. So this is the old Lafayette Hotel right here. And you can see there were a bunch of them marching all the way down the street, down Beach Avenue. And some of them up a little higher were up at the 1100 block, were a little bit wider, a couple feet wider. And if you take a look at an image like this, you can see, again, this is just east of Decatur, where the old Lafayette Hotel was. So between Primal and roughly right here where the convention hall is, there were 6 of them. So they're roughly about 150 feet on center. And the intention here is that they would try and replicate that rhythm of arches that would be illuminated and be made of wood. Although I had a meeting this morning with the structural engineer, because my big concern is the lateral stability of these with the wind along. And what we're thinking is embedded inside of this would probably be a structural steel frame that would be embedded into concrete foundations that would be hopefully installed in conjunction with the repaving. And that's pretty much it, guys. I just wanted to, this is very, very preliminary. That is an intentional project that they asked me to work on, and I'm just volunteering my effort to do it.
I just a couple of questions. One, you mentioned the funding. In addition to the fund that you mentioned, there should be considerable grant money available for projects of this nature. It may be matching grants where I guess independently you could match or the city could match. But at any rate, I would just comment that there's several sources that ought to be considered for funding. The other issue is you're showing lights, and that's what the original arches were for. Is this going to be like a cosmetic light, or is this going to be true lighting that'll replace something else?
Yeah, there's a couple things going on there, Warren. You can see these lights are the old Edison lights, because these were photographs are from like 1910 to 1914-ish. And so the Chicago Exposition of 1893 is where these were all introduced and started to proliferate across the country right after that. So yes, the intention is to use the historical Edison looking lights, but with LEDs so that they're far more efficient. But also in addition to that, what's being planned is along the street. So if we go back here, you can see these light fixtures? Between each one of these was a light fixture that looked like this. And
Can you show your screen again, John?
Oh, I'm sorry.
We don't have the shared screen.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Let me do that again. Okay, so let's go back to this image. So these were the Edison lights that were in there originally. I'm not going to put one in the middle. In fact, that's actually inaccurate. The globe that was supposed to be there on this one was broken when this photograph was taken. But if you go and look at the image of looking all the way down the street, halfway between each one of them was one of these light fixtures. Now, currently along the promenade are the more traditional light fixtures. There's like 6 of them in front of Convention Hall. And then down at the cove end, there's another dozen or so. The intention right now is to take the Cobra Lights, I call them the War of the Worlds light fixtures that are currently, here, let me show you an image.
Know what they're.
These guys, right, on these poles. The intention is
right out of Orson Welles.
Yeah, Orson Welles, exactly, War of the Worlds. Get rid of these guys and hopefully even get rid of the poles to bury the electrical utility in a conduit that will be under this paving, at least between Decatur and
Convention Hall.
And Convention Hall, right. So, and then to install halfway between each of these arches, one of those lights that's similar to the metal historical ones that have been installed, as I said, in front of Convention Hall in the Cove. So does that answer your question, Warren?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Warren, if I can, Tom Carroll speaking. Another thought, other wires that you see hanging down there are part of the PA system, which the lifeguards have insisted upon. And it has its downfall. You really can't hear it that well on the beach, but if you're on the promenade, it's damaging to your ears. So we thought that those wires and hopefully those speakers could be moved to the beach side of these wonderful arches and also help reduce the clutter up there. The reason that we're looking at that one area is, of course, because it's going to be repaved and the wiring could go in. There's been no attempt to sneak this in as suggested, but the Fund for Cape May has been considering a third project after we finish the Soldiers and Sailors. And this seemed like an ideal one to start and do a test area to kind of test out the popularity of it. And no better time than when that section is going to be torn up and resurfaced to work some in there. We were thinking that they might cost as much as $20,000 each. And the fund said, I think we could probably put 3 of them up. John's research shows it's likely that there was 6 of them. And Zach said, well, maybe we could go together and we'll do 3 and you do 3.
Well, before you get too many halvesies on it, I think John made the point, and that probably will have to be considered. And by the way, everybody I think has seen the postcards with these arches, and they did serve in a time when there was a lot less light on the street to make a really impressive array along a good portion of what was the boardwalk. Unfortunately, in time, as the big storms hit, and I'm thinking particularly the hurricane of 44, where you can see the boardwalk ripped up and everything tossed over into beach. These, along with the boardwalk, became very vulnerable to wave action and wind. And John's point about having to specially think about reinforcement and their construction, I think is a point that's well taken. I mean, if it goes forward, and there are those arches.
They are.
There's one of them that survived, but
barely.
you can see them leaning, and you can also see in close-ups of the rubble of pictures of that time. These things went flying, and these days, of course, everyone's really, really wary of projectiles as wave action and wind action batters across beach. So designing them, as you pointed out, John, with proper reinforcement is I think not only going to be necessary, but if I'm not mistaken, these things will probably also need CAFRA approval, and the structural integrity of that is going to be a point that they're going to make against wave action and wind action. So they have to be beefy, but I think it's a really nice return to a theme that really, frankly, nobody else has.
I agree. John, it's B. Pisagno again. I have a question, and they're purely aesthetic. 2 questions. One, in those early pictures, there were these beautiful arches on the east side of Convention Hall too. If we are able to begin with 6, are there plans to go on the other side too, to keep it proportionate?
I think I have to defer to Lorraine on that one.
It's going to be a matter of funding.
Yeah, it's going to be a matter of funding. It's going to be a matter of, and the way that John designed this, if you were able to see the site plan as well, he actually has them in sequence. So it's actually a perspective. When you're looking through it, you have these sequential arches that you're looking through. Well, the boardwalk kind of takes a dip there by Convention Hall and then continues out. So there's going to have to be a little bit more planning as far as funding. That's going to have to, be researched as far as
more proportionate. Yeah.
Exactly.
My other question is this: they are gorgeous, as was our previous Convention Hall. I was here at the storm of 62 when that went, along with the boardwalk a second time. Will they be in keeping with the Convention Hall that we have now, to a certain degree?
I hope not.
As far as architecturally,
frankly, I like the arches better than the Convention Hall.
Well, Convention Hall is a stucco facade.
Right.
So we're not planning on stuccoing this.
Oh, no, I don't want that, but I'm just wondering, they were gorgeous because they were simpatico with the Convention Hall,
Mhm.
which we had.
Mhm.
Okay. How will we make these? I mean, will these be designed to be compatible? Not a carbon copy or anything of that degree, but compatible.
I think we're trying to design them to be compatible with the architecture what Cape May is famous for.
Good,
not
good.
for the standout modern new Convention Hall.
No, I know that, but I just wanted to know how it would look in juxtaposition.
And B, we first suggested that we put 3 on one side of Convention Hall and 3 on the other.
Okay.
On doubled our number to make it accurate. And the one reason we're starting where we are is because that's going to be torn up and we can run
Right.
the conduit in and do it. To do them on the other side of Convention Hall, that would also mean conduit would have to be run down there and resurfacing. So we thought, start where.
Start. You have to start somewhere.
And
Alpha,
let's see the reaction to them.
if John can only design them so they can be put in place and then picked up and moved,
Yeah.
when we raise the seawall up higher after the repavement, you could have a really long-term investment there. I think it's a great idea, and I'm actually reasonably confident you could find some private sources of funding to help out. And I don't know how it would go halvesies with the city, but I think there'd be private sources that would contribute toward this project.
So I would like to sort of reiterate that by saying, I mean, I cannot imagine that people will not love these because they love the old ones, right? Even if they don't have them, they love them. And it certainly is a great, it's a great addition and makes that promenade look less modern maybe, or less like the promenade, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, I think it would be great if the plan is, and if somebody drew this plan for how many there need to be from one end to the other, even though right now only this little piece can be done, so that people don't lose sight of it. Because if you go down further on the promenade, like down toward the cove, there are all those weird lights down there that are supposedly Victorianish, right? But nobody ever made them go the whole way up the boardwalk. I think there should be some kind of plan that they go the whole way, even though now they can't.
Well, perhaps taking a project on in stages, kind of a forward, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3.
And that's definitely at least my wish. And you can, so there's a bunch of things you have to look at. The poles where they are, the ramps where they are. There's a bunch of stuff that's all kinds of completely not cogent. And so in these 2 blocks, we're trying to establish a rhythm that could be replicated along the entire promenade. Basically, think of it this way: approximately 3 arches per block is about the scale of what you would see. And of course, we would have to look at the precise location of all of them, other than within these 2 blocks, which we're precisely locating right now, once that moves forward.
Yeah, it's a good point, Pip. I would echo your observation, because even if we're successful with 3, then things kind of fall off the chart and you forget about moving forward. So if you have a grand plan, I think there's a better chance of it staying on track. So,
and I guess maybe this might also be a good time to mention that even if this is a city improvement and it's city action, it will require an advisory review by the HPC.
Yep.
Yes. City Council knows that, and they
for those people who recently strung up lights on behalf of the city, I just wanted to mention that.
Jim, that has come. Jim, that has come up in the meetings, and the city will make a full presentation on this to the HPC. But just to get the project moving, to get electrical outlets in the right spots, they gave me permission to just throw this out and get a rough reaction on it, so we know whether to be encouraged or discouraged.
I certainly would encourage it.
I too. I think it's a wonderful idea. I really do.
I'm putting you all both down for donors.
Ready on the board for the, fun for Cape May.
Wouldn't be the first time you asked me, Tom.
Well, Jim, you did mention fundraising. And just remember, when we did Rotary Park, we raised $550,000 of public money. When we did Soldiers and Sailors, we found another $280,000 to match for all the furniture that go into the park. So we do have the ability. And even since that time, judging from the applications we've been approving, there's a lot of people with money moving into this town. So maybe we have more people we can reach out to.
Oh, I think you will. I really did.
I think that the fundraising was due to Curtis locking some doors.
The tent doors.
The tent doors, right.
Terrific. So it sounds, Lorraine and Tom, like you're getting a really very positive reaction from the Historic Preservation Commission. And so good luck moving forward.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your work.
I wanted to add a changing subjects, a final point, and I want to be careful with this, and I don't want to belabor it, but I feel compelled to make some kind of a comment. The applicant involved, I would ask each of you to be careful. I don't see any reason to mention the applicant's name because it's not an issue about the applicant. But recently, as some of you have commented to me and was in the paper, an application was appealed to the Zoning Board of Adjustment, which resulted in the HPC decision being overturned. And candidly, there's no graceful way to comment about this other than the Zoning Board of Adjustment made a mistake and they were wrong. Mr. Feinberg's presentation was clear and concise, and it appeared to me that the zoning board solicitor supported the HPC decision made on this application. Yet it was still overturned by the zoning board. The issue before an appeal before zoning, and Bob, just chime in when I misspeak, but the issue before any appeal is, did the HPC make a mistake? And or did they make a decision that was arbitrary and capricious? There was no mistake made. This is in our standards, which is part of the ordinance. The reason for the decision by the HPC is well documented. There is no rereading the narrative. It's quite clear. Secondly, the question is whether we were arbitrary or capricious. I individually met with this applicant and offered a compromise. That compromise was then brought forward in a rehearing by the HPC, and a very significant compromise was offered to this applicant because of the individual circumstance. Just by the fact that we offered such a significant compromise would argue that we're not arbitrary or capricious. A couple of years ago, we had held several meetings with key players from the Zoning Board of Adjustment because we had had a string of these issues being overturned by zoning. And we met through a summer a few years ago, and I thought the meetings were constructive, they were positive, and we saw significant change in the way that zoning was looking at an appeal. Evidently, that training has been lost, or there's a number of new members on zoning. And so I would reach out to you, Bob Feinberg, if you would initiate a discussion with the zoning solicitor to re-engage those meetings this summer so that we can have a roundtable discussion and gain clear understanding and acceptance what the roles are for historic preservation in Cape May, what role does zoning play, what role does the Historic Preservation Commission play, and who is bound by what legal obligations. Again, I don't think it's appropriate to open it up for discussion. I don't want to create a war between HPC and zoning. On the other hand, I think it would be irresponsible for me to sit on the sidelines and say nothing about such an egregious breach. I think it's outrageous. So, Bob, you have a comment?
I think the time has come to do that again. We have new members on that board. I think the last time we did it, our education sessions went very well and they were productive. And for a period of time after that, when there were appeals, the zoning board upheld what the HPC did. We seem to have lapsed back into the old ways. One of the major improvements that came out of those earlier sessions was changes to the zoning ordinance, in which the whole standard of review by the zoning board on appeals was modified, and importantly included language to the effect that the zoning board would give deference to the decisions of the HPC, as long as those decisions were not arbitrary and capricious or unlawful. It's how much deference they want to give, that's a very subjective measurement, I guess, but it seemed to be very little or none on this last appeal that we had. So again, I think we have to meet with them, and one of the other issues that came out of that meeting, the hearing, that I think has to be addressed, is a belief on the part of some members of the zoning board that there is investigative responsibilities on the part of the HPC to look into the information that the applicant has given us. And that's shifting the responsibility of who's to do what. And I really found highly improper that should be expected of the HPC. So that's another area that we have to discuss when we have this meeting. Yeah, I'll reach out to the solicitor. I'll suggest this. I'll ask whether he can contact his board to obtain their agreement to do this, and if so, we'll set it up.
Terrific. Thank you.
We already have a provision in granting our approvals that talks about subsequent discovery of facts, and talks about the fact that if they are discovered, return has to be made to the commission. And I just wanted to remind you that we were going to be, and hopefully we will be, working on procedural changes to the application, where with respect to original materials, we're going to make it pretty clear that an applicant represents to us that that applicant has made tests or samples, and so we'll depend on those representations that'll be made. And I think that pretty clearly highlights not only after the decision, but when the application comes in, the responsibility is on the applicant.
Jim, your point is well taken, and that brings us up to the next question is, Corbin and you and someone else were working on a new application.
Yeah.
What is the status of that project?
It isn't, Warren, and we need to move it along. That's on us. And this only highlights how important that is. So we will have to redouble our efforts and do this over the next couple of months, and actually come up with a form that we can present to the commission with including improvements like that, and with Bob's advice and assistance.
And before we go off that point, when you're looking at that part of the application, you're asking the applicant, what to confirm or attest what the original materials were, and whether they're still there. Even a little more detail than that, perhaps. What tests or what observations did you make? Attach photographs, that kind of thing, to really nail it down.
Yeah, without, getting everybody bogged down, we just need to, this original material stuff is so key that we need to nail it down to the point where people can't make the arguments that were made at the ZBA that you pointed out about where the burden is here.
Yeah.
We process this stuff, but it's the applicants who have to represent it to us.
Right now, do you need additional resources, Jim? It's you and Corbin.
Now, what I need is for Corbin and me to figure out a schedule that we can get and do this and sort of review the pieces and start putting drafts together. It's on us for having let this lag.
So you don't need additional resources.
I don't think so, but I'm not shy. You'll hear from us if we.
Okay.
And can I just clarify, because I think that this happened maybe right in the beginning of when I came on the HPC again. Is this what you were talking about people would have to attest that there's no shake underneath the asphalt, or that there's?
Well, they'd have to make a reasonable investigation. Pip, we can't have absolutes, but they'll make a representation to us based on making some samples.
Okay. And this just has to do with roofs. It doesn't have to do with any other.
No, I think what we're talking about is searching for original materials that the standards would require a replication.
Okay.
That's why
roofs is one.
Say where a house is covered with asbestos siding, they should take that off to see if there's the original clapboard there underneath.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, it's not just roofs, it's anything with original materials to show.
Right, exactly. But we're getting really burned on the roofs, and particularly because of the relative difference in costs, in between redoing on asphalt and fiberglass and cedar. But that's where we've gotten burned before.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else before this all goes?
Warren, we have a new date for our next meeting. I think Judy said it's April 25th.
Yes. Yes, and thank you for bringing that up. It is, we were bumped from our next meeting is live, by the way. And we got bumped from the room. So we're April 25th. That's a Monday. You're muted, Judy.
Sorry. At 6:30 p.m. There's a meeting before us, so they're going to end at 6. So 6:30 should work. Can everyone attend who's on screen this evening on that date?
You have to check the calendar, tell you the truth.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, if everyone can just get back to me, that would.
I'm happy to shoot you an email, Judy.
Okay, thank you.
And again, this meeting will be live. Our next meeting will be live.
Live in person.
So, no pajama bottoms and stuff.
And no dogs.
No dogs.
Warren, can I just make a quick comment?
You may.
Okay. Just to let everybody know, I guess it was 2 meetings ago at the HPC, there was something that came up as far as our vertical datum standards. We were operating off the NGVD 29, and the most recent is the NAVD 88. We did introduce that 2 meetings ago at council. So the importance of having representation here to cross that over to council, just to let everybody know that changes in the process, and it should be adopted May the 17th.
Oh, terrific. Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
Move, we adjourn.
Second.
That's it.
Have a
Thank-
nice rest of
Good night.
the evening.
Good to see
And
everybody.
And
Bye-bye.
Tom, thank you for filling in while I've been taking it easy in the sun down here. So thank you, Tom.
See everybody
welcome.
live next
Thanks,
month.
Tom.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
saying what to do. Okay, to end, click stop recording top left. Nick? Just stop recording top left. Not stop.